when you live your zone of genius, you look around and you just realize how much people are missing. They're missing life. They're not really alive. They're not connected. They're like children who are grounded, or they're being punished. They're not allowed to play. They're not allowed to express themselves. They're not allowed to do what they want to do because they're stuck in the zone of excellence. They're stuck in grinding work that doesn't mean anything to them. So in the previous episode, we spoke about the zone of excellence and the upsides and downsides to that. The zone of excellence is when we feel unfulfilled, unappreciated, and uninspired in our work. And we concluded that there's a greater level of work available to us, and that is called the zone of genius. That's what we're going to talk about today. Just want to say that this is a potentially life-changing move here. It can dramatically impact your work, your creativity, and your finances, and ultimately your fulfillment in life. As Laura Garnett says, who did a TED Talk on this subject, she said, "Operating in the zone of genius will fundamentally alter the way you work. You will love what you do." End quote. The idea of living in the zone of genius seems impossible to most people, and this is a real shame because it is possible, and if you don't reach the zone of genius, you're going to spend your life unfulfilled in your professional life. This is Deep Psychology. I'm Ross. We blend spirituality, psychology, and self-help to shine a light on your inner workings. Listen if you want to get real, powerful insights and avoid all the fluffy nonsense that abounds in self-help circles. You'll know more about how your psychology works than 99% of people on the planet. Find me on all the major podcasting platforms or head to deep-psychology.com, visited by thousands every month, for tons of free resources. And I'm now on Patreon. I'd really appreciate you supporting the show, and in return you can access exclusive perks. Alright, time for the show. So you're about to learn what the zone of genius is, why you must move into it, and how to start moving into it. Let's start by talking about what the zone of genius is. Gay Hendricks, who came up with the concept of zone of genius, says it is, quote, living up to our full potential, end quote. Now, there are actually two ways to look at the zone of genius, and you'll see both perspectives out there. We're just going to focus on one, but the other one is interesting to know about. One way, and it's the most important way to me, is to view it as the fields or sports or activities or the career where you have high competence and high passion. For example, if you run a business and it fulfills you and lets you use your greatest strengths, you're working in your zone of genius. It can also be the activities or tasks within our work where we have high competence and high passion. So maybe you run a business and you carry out lots of tasks. Some of them might be in your zone of genius, while others are run-of-the-mill, boring, uninspiring, and so on. We're just going to focus on the first version when your entire career is built on your zone of genius, because I think this is ultimately the most interesting. In any case, being in your zone of genius means you're going to have high competence and high passion. This contrasts with the zone of excellence, which is high competence, low to medium passion. Now, there's a few key characteristics of the zone of genius. This is when you really know that you're living it. So let's have a look. First of all, it's a highly personal thing. It's very idiosyncratic. In a way, no one else can do what you do, because often the zone of genius is like a combination of your high passion, high competence areas, and what's the chances that someone else is going to have the exact same 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 high competence, high passion areas? It's quite unlikely. So when you're living your zone of genius, or when you see other people living your zone of genius, there's this quality of being one of a kind, of being unique, of being very personal, very defining of that person. And this is one of the characteristics of the zone of genius. The zone of genius is the set of activities that you're suited for, uniquely suited for, and that allow you to positively contribute to the world. So with the zone of genius, there's a component of contribution. And I want you to keep that in mind, because passion is proportional to contribution. Often we design careers in a kind of selfish way. It's around money, it's about prestige and reputation and so on. As we develop as people, we want to, become less selfish and become more giving. Not that we have to forget about ourselves or just do volunteer work or whatever, but we contribute greatly to the world. It's not a selfish act. This is one of the keys to the zone of genius too. In your zone of genius, you get a lot of yield, very high yield work. The amount of positive results you get to time spent is just disproportional. It's way above the average person, because you love the work. It doesn't feel like work, it feels effortless, and so you're willing to put a lot of time in, but also because it's high competence. For every hour you put in, you're going to get more results, because you have the knowledge, you have special knowledge that other people don't have, and it's built on several unique interests of yours, and your accomplishments blow other people away. Have you ever seen someone, either famous or just someone that you know, that they just blow you away with their accomplishments and they seem to be living the life that they should live? That is another feature of the zone of genius. Your zone of genius energizes you, and it enables you to enter regular flow states. In a flow state, your attention is absorbed, your time seems to disappear, and you feel carried along by the work. And this is something that most of us never experience, because we don't experience joy in our work, and so we can't get lost in it, we can't become absorbed in it, because we just don't like it, we want to be out of there. And this is one of the great things about the zone of genius, is entering those flow states. And a lot has been said about flow states if you want to go and check out research on it, but this is one of the fantastic things about the zone of genius that the zone of excellence will not provide you with. And finally, the zone of genius is an end in and of itself. It's not a means to an end like the zone of excellence, where you don't really like your work, you don't want to get up in the morning and go to the office or whatever, but you do it because it pays well and you need to take care of things, you need to look after your finances and whatnot. The zone of genius is not like that. Of course, we all need to earn money, we all need to and we can look for external rewards in our work, but that's not what drives you in your zone of genius. You're doing it because you love it. You're like a child. You do things because you want to do them. You want to express yourself, you want to have fun, and you want to feel fulfilled. This is one of the great gifts of the zone of genius, and to me it's what motivated me most throughout my life to eventually find my zone of genius and to live it and to make it a real priority. Is I don't want my life to just be about paying the bills and about status and getting recognition. I actually want to do something I love and that brings out my greatest gifts. And that's one of the beautiful things about the zone of genius. It is an end in and of itself. How many people can say that about their work? Why must you live your zone of genius? We've talked about this a little bit, but I just want to make this very clear. Working in the zone of genius is deeply fulfilling. I think you can experience fulfillment that most people just simply do not experience in their work, because you're motivated intrinsically. You come in with energy and enthusiasm, and you're achieving. I mean, what else could you want? It brings out, and this is something very personal to me, it brings out your sense of inner power and your sense of mission in life. You don't have to rely on other people to give you power. You don't have to look to others to give you a mission, to tell you what to do. You know what you want to do. You know what you want to build. You know what you want, in my case, to teach people. And that sense of inner directedness is, for me, it's deeply fulfilling, and it's one of the reasons I work from my zone of genius. Life itself feels full and fulfilling and deeply meaningful, and I think this is one of the big overarching secrets of the zone of genius is that it actually changes your entire life. If you work in a job where you're not fulfilled, and I've been there myself many times, life can start to just feel like stale and meaningless, and you might, even after a few years, decades, you might start to wonder, what is the point of all this? What's the point of being alive? And that's the zone of genius connects you with the beauty. It connects you with the meaning of life in a way that the zone of excellence just doesn't allow you to do that. It also gives you a huge competitive advantage. Talking about achievement, most people are vanilla. They're vanilla flavored. They've got no passion. They're replaceable. They're 10 a penny. They don't have anything really unique. They don't have any unique viewpoints. They don't have any vision. They don't have really any real purpose that they're fighting for. They might be very good at what they do. They might be in a very high earning profession, but most people don't connect with a deeper purpose. Their purpose is prestige or money or materialistic things. And this just makes them replaceable and vanilla because there's nothing there. There's no real passion. There's no fire. There's no power. This helps you stand out living from your zone of genius because there is that power. There is that passion. And people who don't have it, they cannot imitate you. Even if they're better than you in terms of skills, they cannot imitate that passion. They cannot pretend that it's there when it's not. And over time, this gives you a huge competitive advantage because you're going to go further than those who are just in it for the external rewards. You also deeply understand yourself and you live in synchrony with who you are, because the zone of genius isn't something you just jump to overnight. In most cases, it takes years to really live out your zone of genius. And in really making it a priority, in that process of going from the zone of excellence to your zone of genius, you need to know yourself. You need to know what you enjoy. You need to know what you hate. You need to know what you don't want in life. You need to know what fascinates you and drives you at a deep level. And this helps you deeply understand yourself in a way that most people don't, or they do, but to quite a shallow level. I also say that when you live your zone of genius, you look around and you just realize how much people are missing. They're missing life. They're not really alive. They're not connected. They're like children who are grounded, or they're being punished. They're not allowed to play. They're not allowed to express themselves. They're not allowed to do what they want to do because they're stuck in the zone of excellence. They're stuck in grinding work that doesn't mean anything to them, and it sucks their soul out of it. It's one of the bittersweet parts about this is you can see it in other people, but in seeing it in other people, you realize you don't have it and that you're living a very different life. So that is another reason why you must live it, because it gives you that, you realize that you aren't missing out like other people are, and you realize how much more fulfilled you are in a certain way than other people are. I have to be honest, I can't imagine my life without zone of genius. These formal tips aside, I really can't imagine it. And for a long time, I've known that I needed to find it. I didn't have the language to describe it. I didn't know what it was, but I knew. And now that I have it, I really can't imagine my life without it. I don't think I would feel meaning if I didn't have it. I'm not sure I would know what to do with myself if I didn't have it. And that wasn't necessarily the case before. But once you're in it, you realize that this is really what life is about. This is what we should all have, ideally. This is what we could all have if we worked hard enough to create it. How do you live your zone of genius? Now, listen, this could take there's courses and books written about this, so this is just a very quick summary of what to do. I've actually written an entire article called Your Life Calling, Find It and Live It. I'll link to it in the description. And again, that's not absolutely complete. It goes into more detail here. than here, but this is just a quick summary here. It's not just like, oh yeah, follow your passion. I mean, in a way it is, but it's much messier than that. It's not so sweet and beautiful. It's kind of dirty and messy a lot of the time. Sometimes it requires changing career. In fact, often it will if you're in your zone of excellence. It requires picking up new skills. It means going back to school and getting more qualifications, or it means starting a business from scratch. It takes sacrifice and it takes a lot of bravery to live in your zone of genius. So don't just think, oh yeah, I'm just going to live my passion, because it's not going to happen like that. It's going to be messy and difficult, but it'll be worth it. Even finding your zone of genius is challenging because, for one thing, we don't see ourselves objectively, and therefore we can't see our own unique traits. As I said, zone of genius is very unique, but we struggle to see our uniqueness. The other problem is that we're so conditioned by society and the people around us as to what career is, what we should be, what we should do with our lives, that we can't develop our desires. We can't even contact our desires in the first place because we've not went through that process. We've not explored life enough because we've just went down a track that's going to take us to our zone of excellence, to that numb comfort, as I said in the previous episode. And the other problem is that we seek social validation through our career. If we're in the zone of excellence, we just want to fit in. We want to fit in with the corporate culture we're in. We want to fit in with our family. We want to fit in with society. We don't want to rock the boat because doing so is emotionally challenging. We don't like being different. We don't like stepping out. To find your zone of genius and to live your zone of genius, you need to step out. You have to be alone. You have to kind of go alone, especially at the start when you're maybe not getting the material results, the external rewards that you might want from this high passion, high excellence work. You're going to have to go alone. You're going to have to trust in yourself. And just finding it because of those reasons is challenging. But that's the path that you have to go down. Once you do find it, it still doesn't get any easier. You have to be very committed. You have to be very tenacious. You need support along the way, whether it's virtual, maybe you have a coach, maybe you use courses and books, or maybe it's people around you. Maybe you join a group, or maybe you have people in your family or someone close to you that can support you. But it's not an easy journey. You have to cultivate self-knowledge, as I said. You have to do away with the false modesty. You have to stop looking outside for direction and people to tell you what to do, which, if you're in your zone of excellence, is likely what you've done. You have to stand up and fight for something that perhaps no one else is fighting for. If this has grabbed your attention, this talk on the zone of genius, then do check out my other articles and videos on the subject. I'll link in the description to those. And I just want to say it is possible to live in your zone of genius. I don't know how many times when I started my website, or even back in university when I decided not to pursue the career that I'd been working towards for 5 or 10 years, how many people told me that you can't have passion in your work. You're looking for something that doesn't exist. Why don't you just take a stable job and earn good money and live your life? It is possible. And you have to listen to people who've done it, not people who have no idea what they're talking about and that are too scared to do it, even though they really want to do it. It is possible to do it. It takes time and it takes courage and bravery and tenacity and all that, but it is possible. And this is the thing that you have to cling to most. Not that you just, have blind faith and you don't strategize and you don't build skills and you aren't pragmatic. You need to be very pragmatic. But you need to have that core belief, that core faith that it will work out if you just hammer on it enough times. All right, I really hope this has inspired you to go ahead and start moving into your zone of genius, because this is a subject that's really close to my heart, and it pains me after After finding my zone of genius and living it now, it pains me how many people go through life never finding it. Alright, that's me. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Do check out the additional resources. Support me on Patreon if you dig what I do. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all the latest work I'm publishing. And I'll see you in the next video.